Love Ghost of Tsushima's historical samurai action or the Souls-like games, but wish they were just a little bit more forgiving. Rise of the Ronin, a PS5 exclusive from Team Ninja and Sony X Dev coming out on March 22, might be for you. Here's our review. The parrying system is really fun. It's called Counter Sparks. You press triangle to deflect a hit at the right time, and there are 3 difficulty settings, with the easiest giving you a bigger window for getting a parry, while the hardest requires more precise timing. It's all part of the game's plan to make a game with some Souls-like elements more accessible. Like any good Souls-like or Souls-like in the case of Ronin, the boss battles are also incredibly fun. The best part is figuring out their combo pattern so you can parry each hit. You could get hit, but as long as you parry the last attack in their combo, you can momentarily stagger a boss and get a few hits in. With each parry, you also build up their panic meter, which when full allows you to unleash a killer attack that deletes a good chunk of their health. It's similar to Sekiro. There are a ton of fighting styles and weapon types, and there is a mix of both Japanese weapons and Western weapons, as the game is set in Japan's historical Bakumatsu period, when Japan is opening up to Western influence, which really is the core in the conflict in the game.
The Black Ships return, seeking the prize of a commercial treaty between America and Japan. With the city in tumult, the figures who will shape Japan's future gather in Yokohama.
The pro-shogunate wants to open up Japan to the world, and the anti-shogunate doesn't want this foreign influence and wants to restore imperial rule. Fun fact, Battousai from Rurouni Kenshin was an assassin during the Bakumatsu period for the anti-shogunate faction, the Shinshishi. Here's an even more fun fact. Rise of the Ronin has one fighting stance reminiscent of Battousai's quick draw style, Saito's piercing style, and like Shishio, you can set your sword on fire. There are some unique killer blows depending on the fighting style or weapon you're using to keep the action looking dynamic.
I'll avenge you!
There's a strong emphasis on the characters. The characters are well designed and you can build a bond with them by giving them appropriate gifts, by choosing them as an ally in the game's missions, or by chatting with them in your house. You'll get equipment as a reward for raising your bond level with the character, or in some cases, learn a new fighting technique. You can also have pets in your house, such as the cats you catch and the dogs that you befriend. You can also set various decorations, which will also have bonuses for you in battle. The environments in the game are varied, including the missions you take part in. The game has some technical graphical flaws, but since I started reviewing the game, I've had at least 2 patches that appear to have improved the performance and the texture work. There are some spots where the graphics look rough, but overall I've enjoyed the scenery and the world looks organic and lovingly crafted, from geisha houses to rundown villages to scenic temples. Glider assassinations. Opening the glider at first wasn't a responsive experience. There was a specific timing to pressing the X button to deploy it, but if you miss it, you just fall like a rock. Again, a patch has improved it and it's become responsive now. And once you do an assassination falling from the glider, it's just a cool feeling.
I was croaking for a second there.
Things like this, as well as the aforementioned graphical flaws, tiny details like typos, I've noticed too, almost give me the impression of a Rush Cyberpunk 2077 situation, although in comparison, Ronin is very much in a much more playable state as it is. I love the quality of life improvements for an open world game, like automatic item pickups, including plants and minerals, and especially automatic destination running for your horse, and automatic riding when you call up your horse, just to name a few. It's a much more forgiving game than other games influenced by the Souls series. It's easier to recover experience points you potentially lose from dying. There's a checkpoint right before a boss, unlike the classic Souls games where you really have to go through an entire stage before you get another shot. And you can choose to do missions or fight bosses with 2 other CPU-controlled allies who can revive you as long as you have a healing item left, and who you can switch playing as any type, essentially giving you 2 extra lives. It's like a 3v1 sometimes against bosses. Boss really giving you a hard time? Switch up the difficulty level. The easiest level gives you more healing items and more health points recovered when healing. The point is, this is designed for players that want to experience a measure of strategic, pattern memorizing Souls-like combat with less stress and with options at hand if they decided they've had enough and just want to go forward with the game. Or for those that just want a less stressful time playing after a whole day of working. So props to Team Ninja for attempting to define the middle ground between the traditional action-adventure open-world game and the more challenging masochistic Souls game. The loot has a Diablo-like feel. For an open-world title, it feels very generous with sword and armor drops, and these are put under categories such as excellent and exquisite, aside from more common ones. Exquisite items can have an exquisite trait that gives multiple bonuses, but in order to get a bonus, you need to equip an item that has the same exquisite trait. To get all bonuses, you often have to equip 3 items with the same exquisite trait, similar to completing a set item from the Diablo games. Like Diablo 4, you can disassemble items into raw materials, which you can then use to upgrade your favored equipment. Like Ghost of Tsushima, you can liberate regions by clearing them of enemies. It's not only fun to do these clearing missions, or as the game calls it, restoring public order, but it's rewarding as well since you often open up fast travel spots by doing so, or in some cases unlock that area's merchant that offers unique loot. The overall stealth mechanic is smart because the enemy programming for this part could use work. Enemies don't hear when you break stuff, and their cone of vision feels unrealistically limited at times. You feel like they should have seen you or heard you already, but they don't. It's not realistic in this sense, although this makes things certainly easier for gamers. It's not that the stealth experience isn't fun, it's still satisfying to get those stealth kills and reminds me of the old PlayStation days of Tenchu.
Very nice.
Traversal feels restrictive for a game that has some ninja elements. The ledges you can grab on are limited, and you can only use your grapple in a few spots. Personally, I feel like this game could have benefited from Assassin's Creed style or Shadow of Mordor style climb anywhere mechanic, especially given that there are some gorgeous views in the game. Heck, even the old Tenchu games let you grapple anywhere. There are moments when the enemy would alternate between chasing after me, then rushing back to their designated area, and then chasing after me again. It's funny and exploitable, but it's an illusion-shattering moment. I know enemies are supposed to be restricted to an area, but I think the game should have maybe extended this range farther out. This will probably be one of the biggest knocks on the game. The graphics can be uneven, but be that as it may, there are some amazing looking scenes and scenery. I've especially liked the lightning, fog, dust particle, and rain effects, although yes, performance could still be improved. I wouldn't use ray tracing mode for now, barring a really good patch from the devs. Even after the patches, the image quality seems to take a dip here, and so far I don't see significant visual benefits from the ray tracing. In my experience, the best mode has been graphics mode for the best clarity, fidelity, best texture quality, minimized pop-ins, and better draw distance. But mind you, the frame rate could feel sluggish in scenes, especially in wide open areas with a lot of NPCs and buildings. In more enclosed areas, it's smoother. Missions are usually in more contained areas, so the experience is better there. Performance mode has more noticeable pop-ins and what feels like a shorter draw distance, and the draw distance is important for an open world game. But make no mistake, for the fun combat and the many fighting styles, the engaging characters, the historical setting, and the fun things to do like the photography, cat catching, dog petting, character bonding, strong art style, and whatnot, I'm really okay with the fact that the graphics technically don't set new standards. So that's Ronin. It has rough spots, some illusion-breaking moments with the enemy, but it's engaging enough that once you get into it, you'd want to keep playing to master the combat and see the characters and the story through. If you're a sucker for this kind of setting, getting access to a lot of sword fighting styles, love the idea of a lot more forgiving Souls-like, as this is a game you'll really find enjoyment in.